Welcome to a bonus episode of the Coast to Coast AFL podcast with Nick and Blaze. I am Blaze, your host, and this week we are covering the last 5 games of every single team in the competition. We call this the run home. Most people call it the run home generally. But basically it dictates what matchups are left, what the variabilities are as to whether those matchups can be won or lost per team, and where they may end up finishing when it comes to the final positions on the ladder. So, let's jump straight into it. How are you doing, Mr. Sarek?
Not too bad, not too bad. Obviously, not much has changed from the last time I talked to you, so I am ready to check out all these permutations and try and convince you all that Port can still, in fact, make finals.
I think at this point we've determined that it is statistically impossible, but you never really know, do you?
I don't think it's statistically impossible, but it takes a lot.
True, it's going to take like 200 plus margins to be able to make it in.
Probably.
That's the realistic look at it. Yeah, for me, nothing much has really changed either. If anyone was looking at my socials on Tuesday, you may have seen the stadium show match that we ran. If you did view either on my stream or on the main HSP stream, we appreciate you very, very much. I'm hoping to do a couple more of those later in the year, so fingers are crossed. But otherwise, yes, let's jump into our run home. So, we might as well just start right at the beginning, and that is with Collingwood.
We are, of course, doing this by ladder position. Collingwood are currently first at 56 points, with their last result being a loss to the 7th place Fremantle at the MCG, 78-79.
Yes.
And coming up, they have the 16th place Richmond at the G, but it's away. Brisbane, 2nd, MCG home game. Hawthorn, 5th, MCG away game. Adelaide, 3rd at the Adelaide Oval. And Melbourne, 13th at the MCG. A very mixed bag.
It is. Just on paper, you'd probably say that Collingwood should win against Brisbane. Oh, sorry, should win against Richmond and Melbourne at minimum. We'll find out obviously this weekend, at least for the Richmond case. But Brisbane, Hawthorn, and the Crows teams are either very strongly in finals contention or still vying for finals contention, i.e. Hawthorn. It's definitely that's the mixed bag aspect of it all, especially when you can see against Fremantle that there were holes in Collingwood's defense that they were exploited.
Yeah, obviously have a few injuries at the moment, but the very interesting thing that when we will get to Adelaide is how shaky Collingwood for first looks. And honestly, I don't think there's that much difference between first and second, but you don't want to be getting third. That's the real big missed opportunity, because obviously one less home game can spell maybe a shock loss into having to play to defend your finals berth in the whatever you call it, semi-finals. Yeah, so as I said, it's not particularly easy. I do think that 3 wins is definitely the under bet of likely. Absolute worst case scenario is just the wins against Richmond and Melbourne. In case of what you would expect, obviously Collingwood could lose all 5.
Yes,
probably not going to happen. So as I said, if we just quickly do the maths, that's looking at a 68 or 72 first place.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one game they would most likely lose out of the 5 options would probably be against Brisbane. Purely because Brisbane are currently second on the ladder. They are most, the pretty much the only major team apart from, I guess, the Crows and Geelong that are vying for that top spot. But considering that matchup is so close, with Collingwood's defense still looking fairly vulnerable because of their injuries, definitely could be a very startling loss to open up the top 4.
Yeah, exactly. And the other interesting, I suppose, is if they, oh, sorry, I was about to say, last year, Sydney won the ladder with 68 points, which is 17 wins, 6 losses. So, as I said, it'll be an interesting first because, as I said, that'll be roughly the same. Whether it's Well, if you think, if they're going to lose 3, then likely Adelaide's going to take that top spot. So, as I said, it will be roughly around that, unless they go out and win all 5, in which case they get, 68, I think. Wait, no, not 68.
70...
No, if they win all 5, it's 72.
70, yeah. 73, something like that.
Anyway.
Yeah, either way.
Yeah, sorry, Matt.
It is entirely possible for them to win all 5. Statistically unlikely.
No, it would be 76. 76.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, you're right. Yeah, it is 76. Yes. Yeah, because 5 times 4 is 20. There you go. Quick maths.
yeah, of course.
Yes, it is possible that they could win all 5. Statistically unlikely, especially with the strength of at least 3 of those 5 teams. But I think they're extremely unlikely to miss out on top 4. So I think...
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're safe for the most part.
We'll go through. Yeah, we'll go through that, obviously, a bit more in terms of what we think is a top 4 benchmark. But yeah, they would have to drop upwards to 4 games to do that. So they would have to drop Richmond or Melbourne.
Yes, very true. All right, let's jump over to our second team. And again, as we're going by ladder, Brisbane are currently second and sitting on 54 points. Their last result was a win against the Western Bulldogs at the Gabba, 86-76. And the next 5 games are up against the Gold Coast Suns, sitting in 8th at People's First Stadium. Up against Collingwood the week after, as we just talked about, at the MCG. Then against Sydney, who are sitting in 10th at the Gabba. Fremantle sitting in 7th at Optus. And Hawthorn sitting in 5th, also at the Gabba.
And very interesting thing about this one is obviously Brisbane, as long as there's no more draws in the rest of the season, have that buffer with their draw that they got, again, weirdly enough to say, against North Melbourne a long time ago. So, and obviously, we should say at this point, we do have to put an asterisk on that 8th for Gold Coast. We mention it more when the slide comes up, but obviously they have a game in hand. Yes. So they are pretty much a floating sort of team. Put them up count it the same as 7th and 6th.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like you could kind of count it as just half a game because it is against the Bombers that that extra game they have to play. But
they still have to play it. They still have to beat them.
It's true. They still have to play it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this their Brisbane's run home is very interesting because it's all tough teams. Yeah. It's probably the toughest.
Exactly.
It's probably the toughest run home of the season.
Exactly, and if we're talking about top 4 not secure, it would be Brisbane, and that's what I was talking about on the podcast, where I think Fagan sort of left the hunting style Brisbane that we've seen for a bit later, because obviously they looked a bit lethargic earlier, still winning games, not doing it that comprehensively, but I think they've turned up a gear, and I think this is why, because they really need to lock in if they want to approach this final series from 4th upwards. Obviously they did it from 5th last year. Any team would prefer not to. But as you mentioned, Gold Coast are people's first. You still would obviously tip the Lions, but obviously in a pineapple grapple, anything can happen. Collingwood's a very interesting one. They've normally had some pretty close games in their recent history. Swans, a lot of that will depend if Sydney is still in the final hunt. They could just as easily collapse as they, would be trying to get that miracle run home.
Yes.
And then obviously Fremantle Optus is pretty hard, and Hawthorn at the Gabba. But I think the main thing is the 3 Queensland games should at least score you 2-3 if you do want to be that top 4, which is probably enough, like Collingwood, with that half a game in hand.
Yeah, I agree.
But you wouldn't want to be losing more than 2 if you want it secure.
Yeah, 100%. And even though earlier in the season, their kind of win streak at the Gabba didn't really look that positive. It has definitely turned around as the season has gone on. So the games against Sydney and Hawthorn should be very heavily favoured for Brisbane. Obviously the Gold Coast clash a little bit different because it is Gold Coast home ground, and to be fair, Gold Coast have looked like a much better team this season, so they should make it a lot more of a threatening game against the Lions. But yeah, the away games against Collingwood and Fremantle will be the hardest, I would say. And
yeah, because they can afford to lose both.
Both games are still highly variable because both teams have been variable. As Freo especially, as we know Freo have to be. Collingwood less likely as such because they're usually pretty good at patching up their holes fairly quickly. But still, I think Brisbane could come out of this at least positive, so like a 3-2. But it could also go the entire way, like higher opposite way, and they could fall out of the top 4.
Yeah, we don't really have a ladder prediction because obviously both of us have probably slight permutations. But I wouldn't imagine Brisbane stay second, but I don't see them falling out the top 4.
No, especially when you look onto our next 2 teams sitting in the top 4. Their run homes are so much easier. So let's jump over to our next one.
Pop down Adelaide. Yes, they are currently in third with 52 points, and their last win was that huge win against the 8th place Gold Coast at Adelaide Oval. That was 107-46. So pretty big win there. Again, it gets their percentage above naturally what Collingwood's is, and it's the highest percentage in the league. And their run home is 11th Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, 5th Hawthorn at Adelaide Oval, 18th West Coast at Optus Stadium, 1st Collingwood at Adelaide Oval, and 17th North at Etihad Stadium. So they've got no conventionally tough away games. They do obviously have to play Port, but even that will be the Adelaide crowd side of thing. But we know those games tend to be close. So again, I wouldn't just lock it in for 4 wins, or, you wouldn't expect 4 wins to be a minimum because that Port's definitely an iffy. But as I said, at this point, unless a miracle happens, you're going to be giving him at least 2 wins. More likely because every other game is at Adelaide Oval. You want to at least get a 50-50 split. So 2/3, depending on if you're optimistic or pessimistic, it's either 3 or 4 wins.
Yeah, I definitely think considering out of the teams in the top 4, although actually I think Geelong's might be a little easier than Adelaide's.
It is.
This is definitely one of the easiest runs home in terms of strength, like in terms of the team sitting in the top 8. Again, the Port game being a showdown, Ken Hinkley's final showdown, of course. That will definitely encourage Port to be very spirited and play a tougher game. Again, the showdown games are always pretty close regardless. Hawthorn, that'll be dependent on how Mitch Lewis and Will Day look now that they're coming back into the side. Will Day is returning this weekend, just for note. That was announced yesterday as we're recording this. With Lewis having played last week and looked all right. I think he was playing on limited minutes. It'll be dependent on how those two kind of track as to whether Hawthorn will be at full strength or not coming into the Adelaide clash. The Eagles and North, that's kind of very obvious where that will go. But the Collingwood clash will be very interesting. The last time Collingwood played at the Adelaide Oval, I believe they came home with a win. So they could have a very, very difficult match on their hands at home in that regard.
Yeah. In fact, we watched that one together, didn't we? That was what we watched when we were in Adelaide at the Cabins.
Yes. Actually, I think it was. You're correct on that.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was a very close game. Very spirited Adelaide, but again, yeah. Was that? No, that was 2023, sorry. Okay. I'm getting a bit
there was the game this year, I'm pretty sure. It might have been the one against.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. Adelaide, we expect at least a 3-2 in terms of score. We'll definitely should at least keep them in top 4. If they come home with 4 wins, it'll push them to be vying for top 2. Obviously, that will mostly be dependent on Brisbane and Geelong, who are right behind them as well.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're sitting pretty good, I think.
Yeah. And obviously, I think 5 wins is... obviously, any team in the top 3 is 5 wins, probably first. There is probably technically where Brisbane get there, but you know what I mean? Get 5 wins, but not, considering they don't play Adelaide. But, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's jump over to our team rounding out the top four, being Geelong, sitting fourth on 48 points, of course. The last result was a win against 15th place St Kilda at GMHBA Stadium, with the scoreline being 113-82. And their next 5 matches are versus North in 17th at Marvel Stadium. Sorry, I was trying to use the MS more than the ES, but I knew what you meant.
Yeah, I always call it Etihad. I didn't realize that. It's just natural
Yeah,
for
I know.
me.
The name changes are too much. I would have gone the Telstra Dome if we really wanted to go back a bit.
Yeah.
And then the next
Um,
is against 11th place Port Adelaide at GMHBA, 14th Essendon at GMHBA, up to the SCG against Sydney, who are sitting in 10th right now. And then their final game of the season is against Richmond, sitting currently in 16th at the MCG.
yeah. So again, because these are all winnable, you don't want to assume. I think Port Adelaide and Sydney could bring in a spirited fight, and especially because Sydney's at the SCG.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if their finals is on the line, it's going to make a huge difference. Port again need so much to go their way. So, it's like, oh, with this run home, Geelong could get first. But when you remember they're a step back, that would put them on to 68 points, which would be 3 wins to Collingwood. So they could get first if they win out.
Mm-hmm.
They would need to keep up percentage. But I think the most likely case is that one of the teams above them get 4 wins and put them out of that contention. So whether that be... Actually, I need to check that. How much is... Yeah, 112. Okay, that's what... Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, no, that was last year's ladder.
No,
Sorry, I was looking at that out of
I
interest. 128, so it's behind Adelaide and Collingwood still. So yes,
Okay.
they would need to really tighten the screws. They would probably need about an average of, I reckon, roughly about 50-point margin, maybe 40, and win out to get top spot, but it's not impossible.
Well, the North game should be quote unquote a percentage boost, especially with no Sherry defending that ruck position. Port Adelaide game, that could go either way, but they should.
But they did absolutely towel them up earlier.
This
That
is
was
true.
a monumental loss.
Very true. Essendon game should be a comfortable win. Sydney game will be probably the hardest one out of these 5. But again, that could likely depend on Sydney's final situation. And then the game against Richmond, I just hope it's close. But I don't. And it could be because it is at the MCG rather than being in Geelong. But it's that's a wait and see kind of thing.
Yeah. So Somerville, even though they are further away, they don't have Destiny for first in their hand. They probably have Destiny for second. That'll be interesting because I think second and third will be probably a game needing to be played between them. Might come down to percentage, might come down to a few things, depending on whether Brisbane or Adelaide or Collingwood. Well, obviously, whether it's Brisbane who have the draw or Collingwood or Adelaide, I should say. But yeah, as I said, a catastrophic failure is needed for them to fall out the top 4 with this schedule home.
Yeah, completely agree. The only way they drop out of top 4 is by absolutely crap in the bed against 3 of these games, against 3 of these teams. It is.
I don't know.
Technically, it's possible, but it's very unlikely to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, as I said, and even with some of the other teams, technically GWS and, well, Hawthorn, probably a bit tough to imagine them getting 4 wins, but GWS could have it in their kit bag, but fairly unlikely. And then, yeah, as I said, Fremantle technically could. Suns, you still got to consider. So they're all teams where all of them would need 4 wins and Geelong to crap.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's pretty much for someone outside of that. Yeah, because I said every team we're talking about up until, I think you can just say, as I say, you count Gold Coast as 48 points at this point. I know that's disrespectful for Essendon, but in terms of just sorting it out in your head, it's a lot easier.
It's just the more realistic option to say that the Suns would be higher if it wasn't for that postponed game.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
All right, let's jump down to our 5th place team.
Yes, Hawthorn, who have 48 points, like Geelong, and obviously this will be descending in terms of percentage, because obviously that's how all these teams are sorted, except for Gold Coast. We'll go to their percentage when we come to them, though. But their last result was a win against Port Adelaide at the UTAS, 87 to 49. UTAS being University of Tasmania.
Yes.
So they've got on the run home 12th place Carlton at the MCG, 3rd place Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, 1st place Collingwood at the MCG, 13th place Melbourne at the MCG, and 2nd place Brisbane at the Gabba.
It's
yeah,
it's certainly a run home. It's one of the tougher ones, especially for Hawthorn. The game this weekend, I think Carlton may actually take the fight to them because it's Sam Wittering's 200th. So Jacob Wittering's 200th, my mistake. And Sam Doherty's final game. Here we go. So Carlton will be playing with their heart on their sleeves. Again, for Hawthorn, they just want to hope that Will Day and Mitch Lewis get through the game pretty all right. Again, those two have been injury prone for a while, so they want to hope that this is going to be a real test for them specifically. But as a team, the team as a whole, you expect them to perform well against Carlton here. Again, Adelaide, Collingwood, Brisbane, definitely the harder games, especially because 2 of those are away. Melbourne game, that could be a 50-50, depends on what kind of Melbourne shows up. But it should be an expected win for Hawthorn. But you know, Melbourne have done weirder things this season.
Yeah, the thing is, it's if they go to expected, they'll still do all right. They're probably more likely to finish 7th and 8th. But an upset loss opens the door, and really an upset win. It's hard to say upset win when they're, not that far behind Adelaide, Collingwood, or Brisbane, but Wedge's terms, it purely above or below on the ladder probably gets them at least a home final. Double chance, probably off the table, not completely, but again, they'd have to do really well, especially considering, as I said, Geelong, easy run home, Adelaide, relatively good run home, and Brisbane just has a few more points ahead of them.
Yeah, it's definitely unlikely for them to finish top 4, but if they finish, it's the furthest they could. I think if they win, provided they win and win with a high percentage boost against Carlton, I think that locks them into top 8. Just because the percentage would have to be really high, like for them to be firmly. Oh no, because
that wouldn't be locked in.
Oh no, yeah, because of the whole extra game with the Gold Coast, that could still cut them out.
Yeah.
But the percentage would be very helpful regardless. So like they could.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so the lowest they could drop is likely 9th overall. But it's looking more likely than not that they will likely end up finishing 5th or 6th overall, I would say.
I reckon 6th or 7th, maybe even 8th, but it really depends. We're going to be talking about new teams coming up, but on the flip side, for the optimistic Sox fan, if they do win 3 of those games, and Brisbane do falter, it could be a top 4 clash, that Brisbane winner in for top 4, so that might be exciting.
That would be a very exciting clash,
so that's a very good, but again, we're talking about expected results here. Anything can happen, as is often the case.
Yes. So, speaking of teams that love to show up in random places, GWS are next on the list, of course. Currently sitting in 6th with 48 points. It's why this, 5th and 9th is so close. Their last result was a win against 14th place Essendon at Marvel Stadium, 56 to 104. Oh no, sorry, NG Stadium. ES is NG Stadium.
Yes.
In this case, I think. Is it?
Yeah, maybe. I probably wrote that before I wrote all my edit. No. It was NG.
Oh no, it was not. No, it was Marvel. It was Essendon. It was the Thursday night game, wasn't it? Thursday night game, Friday night game.
Yeah. No, that was. See, I'm sometimes reliable. consistent.
We roughly know what we're talking
Sometimes.
about. But yeah, 56 to 104. Obviously a big win for them. This week they've got the Battle of the Bridge, as we talked about in the main episode. This week is rivalry round for the interstate teams. So 10th place Sydney at NG. The Doggies are up next, sitting 9th at Marvel. 17th place North. They travel to Canberra to take them in at Monaco. Then they go up to People First Stadium to face Gold Coast Suns, sitting currently in 8th. And then their final game is at NG Stadium against St Kilda, currently sitting 15th.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because in terms of securing a home final, the best thing that they've got for them is that they're very even with Hawthorn. It's only 3 percentage points difference.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to matter for the top 4 unless they really rump at home. The only one being Brisbane around that. And again, if there's no draws, doesn't even matter. So, so again, it's a good draw in terms of, yeah, they should probably finish well. They're probably a lot more likely to make finals than not. But again, they have to respect Sydney. We've talked about that on the podcast, how that could be a very interesting game. That again, Western Bulldogs at Etihad, at Marvel, whatever you want to call it, will be another tough ones. And of course, the Suns at People's First. So a 2-win would be unders, but still very possible.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, they might risk falling out the 8. 2 wins probably would be a at least 8th or 9th. 7th, 8th, and 9th. But anything up from that, they should win. 4 wins obviously probably gets them a home final guaranteed, and 3 wins puts them in like a little awkward zone, depending on how other results go.
Yeah, if they get 2 or 3 wins, which is looking more likely than not, considering the Swans, the Dogs, and the Suns. Yeah, they have to rely on other teams to ensure that they stay top 8, and to guarantee home final. Ideally, obviously, every team wants a home final. That's at least minimum what most teams are vying for.
Yeah.
Obviously, other than that, it's usually a top 4 berth just for that double chance. But yeah, the Sydney game will be extremely interesting because Sydney's in great form right now. Dogs game, similar thing, but it's also an away game for GWS. So they could go either way, but they've had really close games over the past couple of seasons. So that could be a very interesting matchup. And then the game against the Suns.
And rivalry, too.
True, very
Always
true.
heated those patches.
And then obviously we got the second expansion cup for the year between GWS and the Suns. So that could also, that will also be a very intense, very close game, I would assume. North, you'd probably pencil that in as an easy win.
Yeah.
Although, they will have Tristan Sherry back, so at least have, a little bit of upside, but I don't think it won't contribute all that much, really.
Oh, man, they've had Tristan Sherry for a good chunk of the season, and they're still on 3 wins, so.
True. But that, they have other issues in that regard. It's not just a ruck issue here. And then St Kilda, exactly. St Kilda doing St Kilda things. They might show up, they might not. I think the last clash that they had against GWS was actually fairly close. Was that the one?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Gather Round?
Very. I don't know. I vaguely remember it being. No. It was close to 3 quarters, and then they blew them out at the end. That's
right. Yeah.
It might have been Gather Round. Yeah, not sure.
But yeah, so they match up fairly well, surprisingly. But again, it'll depend on just what kind of St Kilda shows up for that game, I think. Whereas GWS have a lot more to play for coming to round 24. Yeah.
But I think, like Hawthorn, again, 4 wins gets them in very good position for top 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they'll be really challenging Brisbane. But as I said, at least 3 wins gets them a silly chance at top 4, but very unlikely. And then, as I said, we've talked about above or below. 5 probably guarantees a top 4. Well, not guarantees, but obviously, again, they don't face Brisbane. 5 wins for Hawthorn would. But yeah, so again, it's a wait and see. But as I said, right now we're assuming Collingwood, Adelaide, and Geelong are pretty fixed in the top 4.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So let's jump down now to our 7th place team.
Oh, whoops. We've accidentally misspelt Flagmantle.
So we did.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah,
currently.
so they are at 7th. I've forgotten which order we're in. Am I taking this one?
No, this is yours.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Fremantle, I hate Flag Mantle. Every time they put it in the paper, they lose the next week. So sorry for the curse if I've done it. But they are in 7th at the moment. It's looking pretty good, 48 points. With that massive win against Collingwood at the MCG, 78-79. We mentioned it before. But these last 2 weeks have almost um, flipped Fremantle's chances from being a slightly unlikely prospect for the 8 to almost likely. And they've got some pretty good games coming up. 18th place West Coast at Optus. 12th place Carlton at Optus. We know Carlton can cause an upset, but Optus Stadium, you would like to hope so. 11th Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. They got the job done against them earlier at Optus, so hopefully for them they'll be able to continue that. 2nd place Brisbane at Optus. Hard game, but at least it's at your home stadium. And the 9th place Western Bulldogs at Etihad Stadium. We want this to be a very close contest there. The Bulldogs would be able to win from their position. We'll talk about that from it. I don't think it will be a lose and out necessarily for Fremantle, but if certain things go wrong, like an upset loss against Carlton or Port Adelaide, that would open the door for it to be a win-in scenario for either team.
Yeah, the shock losses will definitely open, and well, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks, the shock losses that have already happened in some cases have completely opened up the 5th to 9th race. So even more will make it even more devastating, and will open up a team like Sydney to get a possible clearance at a final spot. But assumption being that they should win against the Eagles, Carlton, and Port Adelaide. That should secure their top 8. Brisbane and the Bulldogs. Honestly, Brisbane should. You'd think that Brisbane would surprise them and probably get the run against them. But considering it is at Optus, and every time Brisbane's gone over there, at least to face Freo, it has usually been a pretty interesting contest.
Yeah, last year Fremantle beat Brisbane at Optus. Earlier on in the year when they were struggling, but still a decent result back then.
And then Bulldogs game, obviously at Marvel. It's that could be a 50-50 game. You'd like to think again, like the Hawthorn Brisbane clash. It's going to be like really high tension kind of game because of the fight for top 8. So that one could genuinely be a massive
Brisbane one. Like Brisbane's opens up 2-way. If they lose it, then it opens up the chance to miss. Obviously, even if they go clean sweep through West Coast to a Port. But if they win it and Brisbane lose it, again, that's one where Brisbane's looking a lot less likely to make top 4. So depending, obviously, how results go. So it could be a very interesting last 2 matches. But for Freo fans, they'll probably take a breath if they take all the first 3 games.
Yeah, I think if you secure those,
it
top
just
3...
makes top 3, and it would take a lot for them to fall out the 8.
Yeah, 100%. They'd have to basically be praying that the other teams. Well, obviously they're loosely praying. My bad. Loosely praying for the other teams to do worse, so they guarantee a higher position in the top 8. But more likely than not, it's still going to be a very intense race, and they're just going to hope for a home final.
Yeah, and the reason why we say even with the 3 wins is because, of course, their percentage. It is the lowest currently in the 8 of 108.9. Western Bulldogs is far superior, so the only one they're edging out is if Sydney make a miracle run. So, so the percentage isn't going to be a factor. So it's really just really need the wins. But because of their poor percentage, that puts it a bit out of their destiny. If it is only those 3 wins, but we still think probably. But it does open the door.
Yes, agreed. All right, let's jump down now to our 8th place team, which is of course the Gold Coast Suns. Sitting in 8th with an asterisk because they still have that extra game to play. Currently sitting on 44 points. Their last result was a loss against the Adelaide Crows over at Adelaide Oval, of course, 107-46. We mentioned that before, and their schedule, their run home, is the biggest run home, other than of course Essendon's run home, because again 6 games left for both teams. Starting with second place Brisbane at People First Stadium for the Q Clash. Next is Richmond at People First Stadium as well. Richmond currently sitting 16th. 12th place Carlton at Marvel. 6th place GWS at People First. 11th place Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. And then 14th place Essendon at People First. So, positives to this: 4 home games. Purely because of that postponed game from opening round. So very minimal travel, especially when they've got 2 home games in a row. Very good for them. Obviously, that first one being probably the hardest one in this lineup. Then the Giants game obviously wouldn't be the next one. But again, all those 2 games are also both at home. So like the fact that they have these home games against the toughest opponents in this list, definitely an upside. Downside is that they could still lose both of those games. But looking more likely to win against everyone else, I would say.
Yeah, I think this is the tricky one. And of course, because it's a bit different percentage, that's why we've been treating him as the Fremantle upwards, because, so their maximum would be, of course, 68 points, like all those teams.
Yes.
So they're sort of in that same sort of mix in looking like that. But so Brisbane, again, it's one of those games where it's like, you're going to favour Brisbane, but it's a derby at home, so that always gets a bit of positive. The Expansion Cup at home as well opens up the door there. And then the rest, as I said, it's one of those things where you never want to count your chickens before you hatch. Obviously, Port Adelaide, before last year, had a very good run against the Gold Coast Suns, and it's at Adelaide Oval. And who knows, maybe Carlton might be competent that Eddie had, so who knows. But again, obviously we're looking at 4 wins to guarantee, or more likely than not, a berth in the 8. 5 wins would probably be pushing, but unlikely to make 5th. Although their percentage is somewhere a bit lower than GWS and Hawthorn. That's why we're saying very unlikely to make top 4, but it would at least get a home final. And as I said, to be missing, they would probably need... so they would need to lose Brisbane, GWS, and either 1 or 2 other games. So they would need to have a really bad run home. And at that point, they wouldn't deserve finals anyway.
Yeah, if they were to drop... Well, the assumption is that they could lose the Brisbane game, could lose the GWS game. But if they were to drop like any of the other 4 games, it's more likely than not dire straits for them to be able to keep their finals position.
I think 1 game's all right still.
If they drop 1, that should be okay. Because at 3-3, 3-3 not too bad. But
yeah. Again, it's just because, as I said, we're going to talk about the next team. Because they're a couple of games behind, it's going to make it tough. But as I said, for Destiny on your sane hands, as I said, if you just win all the games you're expected to, it's more than likely the Suns make the 8.
Yes, I would say it is definitely more likely than not. But again, stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
Especially...
The biggest downside we should talk about, though, is they're, again, still possible, but if they do win everything that's expected, they're probably not going to get a home final. They'll probably finish either 7th or 6th, depending on how luck goes. It means that week, that's obviously that they need to do when every other team's taking a break, they have to play Essendon, might hurt them a bit more. It will be at People's First Stadium, but obviously it's a double whammy if they then have to travel the week after to an away game. Obviously, the only other way that might be is a weird scenario where Gold Coast faces Brisbane in an elim.
Yeah. The only way they could really avoid having to travel, or major interstate travel specifically, would be if they get lucky and happen to roll Brisbane somehow. Which is entirely possible. Again, Brisbane it is very possible for them to drop out of the top 4. So it is entirely possible for them to have another matchup. But I don't know how likely it is at this point in time.
No, but it is one of those things that's just such a unfortunate for such an event that was a long time ago. For those who've forgotten, it was because the match was washed away back in opening round when we had these storms in Queensland.
Yes, that is very right. But yeah, so TLDR, more likely than not to finally play finals for the first time. But some unfortunate circumstances could drop them out of the top 8 entirely. And one of those circumstances is our next team, being the Western Bulldogs.
Yep. So Western Bulldogs are 9th at the moment with 40 points. So that puts them essentially what we're judging to be 2 games behind the 8. But they've got a very interesting fixture. Their last result was against the second place Brisbane, which they lost, unfortunately. But they have to face Essendon at Marvel Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
That's an away game. 6 Giants at Marvel Stadium. 13th Melbourne at the MCG. 18th Marvel Eagles, and 7th Fremantle at Marvel Stadium. Yeah, so basically they don't leave Victoria. I've mentioned that before. Huge boon to them. So really, they could win 5. It's not that much out of the question. And if you can do the maths like we've told you, just add 20 points to that. That's why we like to do the run home. 5 games away makes it so much easier.
Very true.
That puts them at 60 points, which is, again, already above what's at first. So theoretically, Western Bulldogs could take top spot. Take a lot of things to happen, but they could. Yeah, so the thing is, though, also helping them, their cause is their superior percentage. They are 127.4, which is the equivalent of the top 4 teams, sans Brisbane. No one below the top 3 percentages are higher than that. So, sorry, that's a very awkward way of saying they've got the 4-5 percentage.
That is a very awkward way to say it, but yeah.
So that's going their way. So again, 5 wins, likely to make it. There's a scenario, and it's more likely if they lose to the Giants and beat Freo, that they can drop a game. But they really, really, really want to be winning all 5 to make final.
Yes. The
5, they've
game
got
coming
destiny in their hands.
Yes.
4, probably a bit of luck.
Yep, agreed. And again, it's looking at these games, obviously, it's the Giants and the Dockers that are the 2 games at risk that they could drop just because of how, those teams being top 8 contenders. The game coming up this week against the Bombers, could it be another, Bailey Dale steals the show kind of game? Who knows? The Melbourne game, it is at the MCG, so they would love that experience. To get more game time on the MCG, because it's technically not their home, even though this is one of their listed home games. So that should be a potential win for them, because the games that they have played at the MCG this year, they have looked really good on it. And then obviously against the West Coast Eagles at Marvel, that should be a convincing win, or well, more of a comprehensive win, and it should be a massive percentage boost, which realistically they don't need, but it would be massively in favor for.
Yeah, it would more just, again, doing more to ensure destiny falls into their own hand. Because as I said, there is a ridiculous scenario where Fremantle flog its few teams but lose a couple of upsets. Well, sorry, not Fremantle. It's probably more Gold Coast. That would be the more likely scenario. But
yes,
Fremantle would probably be out of it in terms of percentage. No matter what, they're, again, a strict wins team.
Yeah, 100%. So I think so now that we've gone over the top 9, who is more likely to take this 9th position for the Bulldogs to come in?
So again, when you think about it, who specifically, because it's the Dockers, like that opens the door for them. I do think the Dockers are all right. Again, I think it's Hawthorn that's likelier to fall out if there was a scenario where they get in, I would still say it's a safe bet that Western Bulldogs probably won't make it. And of course, anyone below the Western Bulldogs, who we'll get to in a second. We'll pay a bit of respect to Sydney. I don't think we will for Port. So Port Adelaide down, we'll probably just go through more what we might want to see rather than scenarios.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, I would say it's like a 60% for Western Bulldogs to miss, I would say.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Out of the top 8 teams, I definitely would think Hawthorn would be the one to fall out if possible. But realistically, it is more likely that the Dogs will just miss out, whether it's via percentage, or it's just they drop a game that they shouldn't have dropped, really.
Well, probably not percentage. Fremantle would be by percentage. As I said, that's the weird zone where, again, it's like if results go their way, Fremantle does well, but still loses to the Western Bulldogs, and, you know, the Western Bulldogs beat GWS and yada, yada, yada. It would be weird, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's jump down now to the team that we do need to pay respects to because they're on an absolute tear in the second half of the season, and that is the Sydney Swans, currently sitting in 10th on 36 points, with their last result being a win against 17th place North at the SCG, 84-53. Their strength of schedule coming up, their run home is against the 6th place Giants at NG Stadium. The Bombers sitting 14th at the SCG, 3rd place Brisbane at the Gabba, 4th place Geelong at the SCG, and the 18th place West Coast Eagles over at Optus. So obviously, because they were grand finalists in 2024 is why they have such a difficult run home. However, you know, the fact that this season for them has been really, really rocky has just kind of really thrown their entire season out of whack when they should have been a lot better.
Yeah.
But again, you know, they got a new coach, slightly different game plan. And they had a bunch of injuries to start the season, which really kind of ruined them. But now that, you know, now that this second half has been incredible for them, and obviously we've got Brodie Grundy looking like potential All-Australian ruckman, it's really, you know, opened up what these last 5 games could be.
Yeah, and it's very interesting too, because obviously, statistically wise, it's normally around 13 wins that gets you into finals, which is 52 points. Currently, the Swans are on 9 wins. So technically, even like we say, Sydney have to win all 5. Technically, on an average year, they would just need to win 4 of the 5. And that's not that out the question. So it would be the Giants upset, Essendon, West Coast, and one of Brisbane and Geelong. However, I do think that this is a year where likely, just by the way the scheduling is, and you can do a mucking around with ladder permutation if you want, where it's more than likely that, one of the, like a 13 team could still miss this year, like we saw last year, where Collingwood only had 12 wins but had 2 draws, which put them up to 13 and missed the finals. So I think that's more than likely this year as well. So again, fate in their hand, win all 5. It becomes still likely-ish to make finals. Percentage of 96.5 is terrible. But a win against GWS puts them in the race to fall out. A win against, you know, well, Brisbane not so much, but as I said, so the only bad side about this fixture is they can't get wins against teams they're competing against, really, which is also a bit of a downside.
There's stuff either
so as I said,
against teams in the top 4, top 5, or against teams below them.
Yeah.
They're right in that kind of middle point where it just doesn't, they can't affect anyone else except their own position, really.
Yeah, pretty much. So again, pretty much just hope for wins, everyone. If you lose, just, you know, don't book your holiday. If you lose 2, you're pretty much out of it, though. Almost guaranteed. But yeah, as I said, 1, there's scenarios, but really, you got to be winning all of them.
Yeah, that's especially if considering the you know, the chance for a finals berth is still open for Sydney. You want to win all of them to guarantee it. Otherwise, and even then, it's not entirely guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think it's more than likely not going to happen. But the fact that it is possible by their own hands is really a credit to them.
Yeah, agreed. All right, now, let's jump over to the teams that are 100% at this point not making finals, but just, what we want to see out of them for the rest of the season.
Logically, 100%. Technically, again, Port Adelaide, you're given 20 points and they can still make it, but yeah. Their last result, loss against Hawthorn at UTAS 87-49, versing 3rd place Adelaide, 4th place Geelong, 7th place Fremantle, 12th place Carlton, and 8th place Gold Coast. They just want to they don't want a miserable end of the season. They're farewelling their coach. They've probably got a few players that maybe not retiring, but, they want to honour. They got the showdown for pride. They've got the Suns, who I reckon they'll be a bit annoyed that they lost to them last year, sort of through them a chance to actually get top spot, which was amazing considering they were nowhere near. But anyway, yeah, so, 2 wins is probably what you would hope for. Is a chance that the Carlton is their only win, and there's a chance that they just lose on 5. But yeah, as I said, 2 to 3 wins is probably what you'd hope for, and hopefully a win against Carlton to at least make sure that Ken Hinkley has some form of send-off nearer to his final game.
Yeah, I agree. It is looking more likely just because they have a harder strength of schedule that they will lose for. Obviously, I would say the showdown is probably the game that they have a chance to win out of the 4.
Yeah, showdown and Suns, I reckon they're like sneaky chances.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't put them above.
They are at AO, so it is beneficial to them.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you expect Geelong in Geelong to be a win for the Cats. Fremantle at AO could actually be a little bit closer, but I would think just because Fremantle are looking so much better, you'd back them in.
Yeah.
And then, Carlton at Marvel. It's at Marvel, so honestly, it could go either way. It could be a game that Port absolutely drop, but they should have a better outing by this point in the by this end of the season.
Yeah.
Especially with
it would be
being Ken's last.
At that point, it would be. We'll know whether it's a battle of respect or not.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right.
Talking about Carlton.
Speaking of Carlton, they're next on the list. What do you know? So they are sitting 12th at 28 points. Last result being a win against Melbourne at the MCG, 78-70. Most people didn't expect that. So it's a credit to them for being able to bounce back after a 5-6 straight loss period, something like that.
They looked fairly miserable during it too. So yeah.
But their next 5 games are against 5th place Hawthorn at the MCG, being Hawthorn's home game. 7th place Freo at Optus, 8th place Gold Coast at Marvel, 11th place Port Adelaide at Marvel, and for some reason I wrote Essendon here, but I think it's 14th place Western Bulldogs at the MCG.
Yeah, I can change that just for sake of sakingness.
Unless it is actually...
No, it would be Western Bulldogs. I think.
I could have copy-pasted the wrong image. I can't remember. Anyway.
Could you? I'll check it. Western Bulldogs' last game is Fremantle, so...
Okay, so it is Essendon.
Oh, it is? Okay, so it is Essendon.
Okay, well, in that case, that should be a game that will actually be a lot closer than we think.
Yeah, you would hope so. I don't think we're thinking Essendon goes anywhere, especially if they... With the amount of young players, you'd think late is a bit hard, unless Carlton are just completely checked out.
Yeah. So for some reason they're playing themselves. Hang on. I must have been really out of it when I did this. My God, I know every other team is correct. I'm sorry.
No, not every other team is correct. You've got West Coast Eagles in Hawthorns. You've got Port Adelaide instead of Gold Coast.
Look, I'm tired. Okay, it's been a busy week already. But anyway,
is it only Carlton?
I don't know.
Everything else is correct.
I technically Port Adelaide's correct. They're just sitting in the wrong spot.
Listening to the podcast. Yeah, you know what? We'll fix this up afterwards.
I'm pretty sure Carlton's the only one I messed up, so it's okay. It's fine. Anyway, against Hawthorn, probably should be an expected loss. but they should be playing a very spirited game with Weitering's 200th and Doherty's farewell game. Fremantle should win that convincingly. Same with the Suns, but it is at Marvel. The Suns have had a very 50-50 run at Marvel this season. Port Adelaide, that is also at Marvel. Again, we talked about that just then. That could be a very 50-50 game, but it could be a game that Port absolutely smash them in. And then the last game against Essendon could also be a very 50-50 game. Will be dependent on this, both how the teams are feeling, whether they're just playing for pride at that point, or they just want to try and have a decent stretch into the off season.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, as I said, it's really just play the kids, see who you can get. Obviously, they've got Moya, who they're wanting to get some games into. Whether they do put a Lucas Camfriali on the wing, you know, maybe drop an Acres, but you know, as I said, it's just I wouldn't say mucking around at this point, but it's retooling for next year because this is a pretty gone season at this point.
Yeah, agreed. It's this is just yeah, very much the same as the other teams that are below them. Just play the kids, get them experience, give them game time.
Yeah.
And hopefully they don't get injured to where you can give them a full preseason as well, and then push their limits when season 2026 comes around.
Yeah. Probably, yeah, as I say, Carlton probably need to play a bit more kids because, yeah, as I said, there's a few other teams where you're like, oh, experience isn't too bad. But, yeah, Carlton, I think you're rolling a bit more dice than other teams trying to find someone.
Yeah, especially if, you know, Wiedering, for an example, has a big injury concern. You don't really have much of a replacement for him down there. And that's, you know, that's sort of some of the things you need to get the younger kids experience into. Is also just being able to be depth.
Yeah, exactly. Get them some tank into the AFL standard because they've got a few kids who probably aren't AFL ready yet, but could probably run half a game. So,
all right, let's jump down to our 13th place team, which is Melbourne.
Sitting on 24 points. Their last result was a loss to Carlton at the MCG 70-78, as you mentioned before. And they've got St Kilda, 15th, 18th place Eagles, 9th place Bulldogs, 5th place Hawthorn, and 1st place Collingwood, all in Victoria. The first two end at Marvel, and the last three are at the MCG.
Yes.
And honestly, they could respectfully bow out of the season. Again, Melbourne are probably the team where the veterans playing well probably is better because they theoretically have the talent pool to push in another year before, you know, retooling, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, yeah, as I said, they want to keep their offense going. I think that's the major thing. Their offense has improved in the back half of the year. They've got a few teams where they can rack up a bit of scoring, even if like the Western Bulldogs game defensively is too much for them. They can definitely keep up at them. But yeah, you just want a bit of respect before you get to Hawthorn and Collingwood, because not many people are expecting them to do all too much against them.
Yeah, agreed. Even the St Kilda game could be a little bit of a coin flip. Again, that's more because of the Marvel aspect than anything, to be honest. Eagles, it should be a convincing win from them there. But yeah, the Dogs, Hawks, and Collingwood are definitely the harder games. And even though they could edge out a win against the Dogs, especially on the MCG, Dogs again just look structurally better and just are in better form overall. So that's mostly the 50-50 game, and then the other two you would assume to be losses, but for Melbourne, you'd want to hope that they're able to make them close at least show that they want to take something positive out of the end of the season.
Because it's not really a positive season, to be honest. And I forgot to make this point at Carlton, but last year, because I was meant to mention the bottom four, I'm not going to like rank which teams are or aren't. But topping out the bottom four last year was 15th place Adelaide with 34. And for Melbourne to get 34 points, they would need to win 4 of their games on the run home. Or draw 2.5. So... and even then, they had a percentage of 90, which isn't close to what Melbourne have. So, so realistically, they're still last year's bottom four-ish. Adelaide, of course, are doing well this season. That's just sort of how close last year was. But from Carlton downwards, I would say they've been fairly miserable seasons. Port's been disappointing, but not quite at this level.
Yeah, agreed. Considering
sorry to be dire, but
no, this is just.
I think that's a good point because it's like, oh, Melbourne, we missed bottom four. You know, as I said, it's not that bad. Where it's like, yeah, but this is a fairly weak ladder once we get past 12. It wasn't like last year, so
yeah, and even then, like they still performed like slightly better last year, and like the past couple again, they only won a premiership 4 years ago.
And exactly. Last year they finished with 44 points, so you know that was disappointing, and now it's considerably worse. So
yeah.
But
yeah, there isn't really much more we could say on that. It's just hope for some positives out of the rest of the season. Even like we said to Carlton, and we'll say to the rest of the teams, just play the kids, get the experience into them, and help them go into a decent preseason. All right, let's jump over to a team that has really struggled this season. The Essendon Edge doesn't exist anymore. Now it's just called the Essendon Youth because they need to play the kids, and that's what they're doing because of their injuries. Currently sitting 14th, of course, with the 6th game to still play against the Suns. 24 points. Their last result being a loss against the Giants at Marvel Stadium, 56-104. And their run home with 6 games is the 9th place Bulldogs at Marvel, 10th place Sydney in the SCG, 4th place Geelong at GMHBA, 15th St Kilda at Marvel, 12th Carlton at the MCG, and 8th Gold Coast at People First. Assumptions, probably lose a minimum of 4. Could lose all of them, but it's the Carlton game is probably the more question mark one of the 6 as to whether because I think St Kilda should beat them realistically, but it's a game that could go either way.
I don't know.
And then the Carlton game is a game they could be more likely to win, but it's not by much.
Yeah, and look, there's like a small competition probably between Essendon and St Kilda, maybe Melbourne, to get that bottom 4 thing. Obviously, it doesn't really matter. Bottom 4 is just a made-up thing. It's really bottom 6 that affects fixturing. And you probably actually want to finish in that bottom 6. Carlton's in the awkward space where they wouldn't. So, yeah, as I said, so Essendon, if they win against St Kilda, they would still count that as okay. If they win 2, then that's fantastic. Probably wouldn't finish bottom 4. Still a bit iffy, but I mean, most likely they're finishing 15th.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a pretty run home. It's like a really difficult run home, and yeah, all we can really say is just again like the other teams, play the kids, play the youth, get the experience into them, try and have decent preseason. It's not much more really to it.
Yeah. I really wish that they played the Science in that first game. It would be interesting to see like the list of available players versus like in that game versus round 0.
Although
that would be interesting.
The interesting thing that they could do is that they could just make it that game specifically really, really, really physically intensive, just to push the Suns and make it harder for them to have a decent run at finals if they make it.
I don't think.
I mean, I know obviously they have the slightly extra time between that point in time and then actual finals games.
Essendon play. It's not like Essendon are like the least contested team. Like I think that softer Essendon was a lot more 2023 beforehand. But
true.
Yeah, I just think as I said, you just play it as normal. You know what I mean? It's Suns don't have the best forward line, so you probably just keep close by playing points off intercept sort of game. But yeah, we'll talk about that in 5 weeks' time when we're doing round 25 prediction. Should be a very short episode, that one.
We might end up just folding it into a finals preview at that point, to be honest, but we'll see.
Yeah, probably.
We will see.
Yeah, anyway.
All right, let's jump down to St Kilda to start the bottom 4.
They're 20 points. Who cares? We'll just get through these. Lost to Geelong, 113-82. 30th place Melbourne, 17th place North, 16th place Richmond, 15th place Essendon, and 6th place Giants. If they finish bottom 4, it'll be catastrophic. It's still a disappointing season.
100%.
But, as I said, if every expected win, so that's 3, that puts them up to 32 points. That's still an okay bad season. Like, that's something you can salvage. Again, similar to what Adelaide did last year. But anything more than that, and that's just really dismal. Again, they win all 5. That'll be actually an okay. You know what I mean? 40 points isn't like the worst, but you just wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And considering they only have to travel out of Victoria once, and that is in their final game against the Giants, it's a very respectable run home. The Melbourne game, will be a 50-50 game. It'll depend on what team shows up for both of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
The North game, you would assume the Saints should get the win on that one. Same with Richmond, but it is at the MCG. So they could just be a Richmond game purely because it's wider territory. Whereas Marvel is a much more like closed stadium, much more tighter wings, etc., etc. For the Bombers, again, it'll be dependent on if the Bombers want to play really spirited, or if the Saints just have a massive run at them. And then the Giants game should be an expected loss. So potentially 4 wins out of 5. Could actually end up being only 2 wins, depending on Melbourne and Richmond mostly. But the expectation is at least 3, I would say.
Yeah, and the tough thing to swallow for Saints fan is that they are guaranteed to finish under last year's win total, where they got 11-12.
Yes. So it's disappointing compared to last season, especially disappointing compared to 2 years ago when they did make finals. But we can
let's
see.
Let's talk about a team above. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say we can at least see some positives in what they're showing. Like in this second half, like Nazaya Wanganeen-Miller, for example, absolute standout.
Yeah, if he stays.
True.
Anyway, I don't want to crap on the Saints too much.
True. But yes, you're right. Let's talk about my boys.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to take.
No, I may as well. So I was just doing the back and forth, but I may as well. So we're obviously Richmond currently sitting 16th on 20 points. Last result was a win. Our first back-to-back win since 23 against the West Coast Eagles at Optus, 56-105. Our run home is up against Collingwood this weekend at the MCG, then up against Gold Coast at People First Stadium, St Kilda at the MCG, North Melbourne down in Hobart, and Geelong also at the MCG. For the games that are our home games, so this weekend Collingwood, St Kilda, and Geelong, I will be at those games. I am very excited. The expectation is that we will probably come out of this maximum 2 wins, being St Kilda and North. We could lose all 5. That is entirely possible, and I'm expecting us to drop that North game because we don't have much. We don't have any experience really down in Hobart. And the St Kilda game, I would like to hope that we win, especially because it's on the MCG, as I said just before. But the only thing that I mostly want to see out of this is more just that the kids have fun, which is what they've been doing the past couple of weeks. They've just been having fun out there, and it's been producing really good results, even if we don't win.
Yeah, I think the biggest win for Richmond would be, A, being the top of the bottom 4, which is technically possible if they beat North and St Kilda, or at least finishing above North, because A, and this is going to be, again, we're talking about North here. When you've got North's list and what they were expected to do and Richmond's prospects, if you finished above them, then that just says a lot about Adam Uze. Does a lot of confidence for him as a coach, puts a lot of confidence in the young players to be like, okay, if we buckle in, we can do so much more next year with all our players. Fingers crossed, touch wood back. But yeah, I mean, they don't have anything to prove. They've already proved enough this season. But I don't think Richmond players will be thinking about it. I think it's just the fan base that are like, well, whatever happens, happens. But I think if you're the coaching staff, you are really wanting to get that North win and finish above them if possible.
100%. And the fact that, we could potentially jump St Kilda as well. That is a be all and end all. That's probably the goal, is to finish top of the bottom four. But just getting the experience into the kids, kind of defining what our structure will be, even going into preseason. Well, we have we pretty much have a solid idea of what our backline looks like. It'll just be our forward line that is the biggest issue because of all of our injuries mostly. So that'll be the main takeaways out of this run home and going into the preseason for next year. All right, let's jump over to North Melbourne, considering they are next on the list.
North Melbourne 17th on 18 points. So the interesting thing about that is, if you're doing a bottom four thing, percentage doesn't matter for them. Last result was a loss to Sydney, 84-53 at the SCG, and they've got the 4th place Geelong, 15th place St Kilda, 6th place Giants, 16th place Richmond, again at Hobart, and 3rd place Adelaide at Marvel. St Kilda, Geelong at Marvel, and Giants at Manuka.
Yes.
Sorry, I might have forgotten to say that against some teams at the bottom.
Nah, you're right. So they won't have Sherry for the Geelong game or the St Kilda game. The Geelong game should be an expected loss regardless. St Kilda game could be a potential close game, but I doubt it. And then expected losses against the Giants and the Crows.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's really that St Kilda Richmond, and I think the bar for North is if they lose those two, there is just, I don't want to say no excuses and all that, but their fan base will be rude. Because that's just probably not good enough for their expectations and growth. I know I'm being very harsh, but you know what I mean? Like, we'll talk a lot of positives in terms of like the season wrap up. We'll always talk positives in teams, but in terms of literal ladder position, they're just not what they want to be at the moment. So don't really need to talk too much. Just St Kilda and Richmond, Richmond and St Kilda, those two games, all of these teams will be wanting to win those.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, as I said, for St Kilda, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Richmond doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But North Melbourne's in a bit of a cultural hole, I think, if they don't manage. But who knows? They could win out 5.
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. Anyway,
not that much stranger.
no, but it would be probably the weirdest thing to happen this season if they won all 5 of these.
Unless our last team gets all 5, because they've got a doozy.
They have probably out of the entire bottom 6, this is probably the hardest strength of schedule, which is weird considering they finished bottom 4 last year.
Adelaide and Melbourne are both bottom 6 teams from last year, which is probably why.
That's probably why. That makes a lot of sense. But anyway, it is the West Coast Eagles, of course, sitting 18th on their sole win of 4 points. The last result being a loss to Richmond at Optus, 56-105. So their run home is facing Fremantle for the Derby this weekend at Optus. Then Melbourne at Marvel, Adelaide at Optus, the Bulldogs at Marvel, and then Sydney at Optus. Again, expected to lose all 5 games. They could. Stranger things have happened in derbies, so they could surprise Freo, but it's not likely this season. And then the Melbourne game is probably the only other game that there's maybe potential, but I don't currently see it to happen.
Yeah, and so the weird thing is that obviously West Coast, a lot more wins last year. It is a big step back from McQualter's first year, who I don't think's been disgraceful, but definitely wanted a few more wins. There was a couple of games let slip. Percentage is only 5 down from it. So really, I guess the last little thing for West Coast is keep your percentage above 60, because that's getting a bit dire for West Coast Eagles fans.
Yeah.
And it already is pretty dire.
Yeah.
The other one is obviously to win, but we're not really expecting that at any particular stage. It would be an upset to most people's tipping weeks if the Eagles won.
Pretty much. Yeah, the only thing you could really do is just, again, continue to basically just do what you're already doing. Play the people that you can. Play the teams that are deserving to play an AFL game, regardless of win or loss. Get that experience into them, and just pull an Essendon and just play very spirited. Like the game against up until like the third quarter. They were playing a very spirited game against Richmond. The games that they've played that were close, or at least close for half or three quarters of a game, were very spirited and very entertaining. So if they're able to at least kind of keep that up and kind of keep pace with some of these teams in their run home, even if they get blown out in like the second half of the third quarter onwards, like it still shows positive development, because we know that this team can't play four quarters. It's just continue to build that tank, continue to build the experience, and hopefully when you get a full preseason, have very minimal injuries as well. That'll end up going a long way going into mini second year.
Because I did actually think, I did say beforehand when we were talking about, well, I was talking to a few people about, okay, Richmond's not guaranteed bottom place. Like, there's a few scenarios where I can imagine. It was mainly West Coast and Essendon, and I did think Essendon, with a lot of injuries, could finish bottom. So the fact that they've got 24 points is really good. It's like, but it just shows the difference, 75% compared to the others is not that high. But they have just won a few more closer games, and that's just what the Eagles have lacked this year. Just winning those close games. So, yeah, again, not many opportunities to now, so it's a bit past it. But again, you're just praying, really. And again, as you're saying, since we're not expecting wins, it's A, keeping those margins respectable, and B, just getting anything out of the kids.
Pretty much. It's all you can really ask for. Well, it's all you can really ask for out of these bottom four, bottom six teams anyway, because they're not playing finals. You just want to get that experience in and just kind of build structure, kind of start, planning the ideas of what you want your team to look like going into the next season and things of that nature. So that brings us to the end of our run home bonus episodes. Thank you also so much for coming to hang out, coming to chat, coming to watch, coming to listen. This is a YouTube exclusive, so you won't find it over on the Spotify, which honestly makes it easier on us this week, but that's okay. Stay tuned for episode 69 next week, which is very nice, where we will obviously go through all the rivalry round and preview round 21. These run homes could be very spicy, could be extremely unpredictable, or could be exactly how we expect it to go. Who knows? The footy gods.
Who knows?
The footy gods like to keep us on our toes. So, with that said, thank you all so much, and we will see you all next week. Take care.